happy weekend, Razor Force. Quick question. How many of you are planning to go see Morbius? What's that? You don't remember Morbius? You remember the Marvel Phase fucking 50 film we were all reminded still existed when they dropped the 20th YouTube trailer for the fucking thing 3 days ago? As I rant, it's actually open in theaters, and I don't know a solitary human being who plans to attend. And I worked at a comic book store, people. My entire social circle was square. Point is, 10 years ago, when comic movies were still cranking on all cylinders, these people would have watched home movies of my Meemaw playing backgammon if I slapped a Marvel logo on the lower fucking third. Now, I mean, when was the last time you saw sincere excitement from the actual target audience for these things? I don't mean in some IGN stink piece paid for by an advertising agency cutting checks that have more zeros than IGN's editorial board. I mean the real folks who flopped their asses in an uncomfortable theater chair, planted their feet on a floor that bonds with the bottom of their shoe on a spiritual level, and actually watched the last 2 Spider-Man movies. Anyone? True story, last comic movie I watched, The Batman, it was actually relatively recently. There were at least 2 people audibly groaning about having to watch the fucking thing on the way into the fucking movie theater. Guys, this is gonna seem facetious, but I assure you, I inquire in all sincerity. Are superhero movies the new chick flick? Where once an enthusiastic public of all ages and genders piled into the theater to enjoy a jolly ass-kicking, now it seems like the average American male endures dog shit like Captain Marvel only when secure in the knowledge that your wife owes you an HJ in the immediate aftermath. Fuck! I say we just cast Hugh Grant as Iron Man and square the fucking circle, my friends. Amid a wall of thankfully waning hype over the years, I have repeatedly cautioned that all things are ephemeral as a fart, and all trends, including superheroes, eventually go the way of Hanson's mbop. To deny such is to be in denial about basic reality like wind blowing, water rolling downhill, or John Cena wearing a bad toupee. I've talked the cycles, the nascent early years, the golden age, deconstruction, and finally the decline, but anyway you slice or prepare this pineapple pizza, it all ends the same way as the final season of fucking Friends. A thing we once enjoyed, stretched to its saddest extremity, all in the name of cold, calculated commercialism. And with certain Marvel and DC films not being the box office wunderkind they once enjoyed, folks, I think it's time to wake up and smell the salted butter. We are in the late-stage deconstruction phase and are rapidly catapulting toward the goddamn decline. And before you scoff, remember, there was a time when your folks or their fucking folks were young, before they had a 401k and their tits and testes had yet to make the linoleum's acquaintance, when on any given weekday they could depart the Cinemaplex having watched a double feature of John Wayne's El Dorado and Audie Murphy's The Texican, pile into a solid steel American automobile, flick on the radio, and flip between audio dramas of the Lone Ranger, the six-shooter sheriff, and goddamn Gunsmoke, alight said vehicle and headed inside, pick up any one of the ubiquitous cowboy comics or pulps, from Masked Rider, Western to Kid Cult, and when they tired of that, they could turn on the boob tube, whereupon ABC would be airing The Rifleman, NBC would be Bonanza, and CBS would be airing, you guessed it, the TV version of fucking Gunsmoke. And this is all if you didn't decide to avail yourself of one of the many ubiquitous Western tourist traps and theme parks in the country instead. From Rawhide to Tombstone to Hopalong Cassidy's Westland, yes, that was an actual fucking thing, Disneyland with fucking 6 shooters. The year I just described, allowing for a fair few anachronisms, was 1966. Westerns dominated the public consciousness like a bald-headed aging actress over Will fucking Smith. And like the same couple calling it a break after a Mark Antony entanglement, within under a decade, it was done. 2 to 3 uninterrupted decades of Western dominion in media, and it was over almost as quickly as it kicked off. Most shockingly of all, anti-cowboy antipathy took its place. Oh sure, John Wayne and our boy Clint could squint their way through a fair few standalone hits throughout the 70s, but they were bankable stars, and frankly, by the 80s, Eastwood's other movies were doing a damn sight better than his westerns were. Dirty Harry all but invented the rogue cop action genre that prevailed in the 80s box office. Not only were westerns no longer being made, mockery was made of the fair few that fucking were. Gene Siskel pinched a princely fucking turd on Pale Rider when it was released in 85. Even John Wayne's final film, The Shootist, made a mere $13 million peanuts compared to prime Wayne fare like Rio Bravo or the Cowboys. In the immortal words of Abe Simpson, I was once with it, then they changed what it was. Now what I'm with isn't it, and what is it seems weird and scary to me. It'll happen to you. Every fucking thing has an expiration date, and no, the internet has not altered that. If anything, it's accelerated it. Don't believe me? I'm gonna say 2 words, and I'm gonna need you to try not to cringe out of your skin. You ready? Braced? Bitchin'. Fidget spinner. Burns a little, don't it? Just when we thought the internet age had put us past mass psychosis or trends invented by industry, some prick pairs the puerile hype of Pogs with a placebo pseudoscience, a fucking Q-ray bracelet. Suddenly you're spinning a fucking ball bearing on your finger and pretending you weren't programmed by the media to fucking do it. And almost as quickly as it came, we peered out of the hive mind haze and said in unison, where am I and how did I get a Nickelodeon logo on my finger? It can happen. It will happen. The only question is if Hollywood will be safely outside the blast radius when the House of Comics implodes. Bitch, bellyache, cry. In fact, I implore you to film yourself while you do so for my entertainment. All the utterances of the word contrarian will not affect the sunset cycle. DC, Marvel, comic films in fucking general, your time will come just as surely as the Reaper eventually came for Westerns, film noir, and the fucking Duke. I read comics. I love comics. Hell, I draw comics! And it's a comic adaptation I'll now employ by way of analogy. Remember 2010? One of the truly triumphant years of comic book cinema. Iron Man 2 kicked it all off with Thor, Cap, and the Avengers all right around the corner. The Marvel ship was run tighter than a bureaucrat's asshole. But something else started that year. A title that began as ominous and over 12 years of slow exsanguination became something more akin to prophecy. A little something on the AMC network I like to call The Walking Dead. Now, friends, fellow Fistians, the final episode has apparently already been filmed, so it's time for us to be honest. How long ago should The Walking Dead have ended? Whatever answer you just shouted at your computer monitor, it can't chronologically be before its debut in 2010. Folks, the current wave of comic films started with Iron Man in 2008. Allow me to put this in terms even Zoomers can understand. How many fucking smartphones have you gone through in that time? I got a drawer in my kitchen that's a glorified graveyard for smartphones. Meanwhile, I heard about the original Iron Man on a flip phone that would probably survive a fucking nuclear bombardment. And look around you at the new phase of fucking Marvel films. Eternals, Black Widow, Shang-Chi, and the quest to cover up the box office figures. Folks, this trend is the one thing the entire WWE roster cannot claim to be. Over. Count on me to be laughing my balls off when it goes under. You know, I hear Tim Pool's had issues getting swatted by socialists. Humble suggestion. If you're scouting locations where no one would ever think to look, 2 words, Timbo. Morbius screening. I'm Razor Fist. God fucking speed.
I am not someone who is love. I'm an idea.
What has the MTV done to you, son?